Okay, so did everybody update their unit table of contents? All right, we are going to be on page 11. You're going to glue in that next half sheet, factoring by grouping. Welcome. Okay, we got new seats. Stand you are next to Hannah over there. Next, Sydney. Okay, so it's the first thing we always look for when we factor. What? Greatest common factor. So always look for GCF. Okay, factoring by grouping is what you're going to do when you have 4 terms. It's one of the options for when you have 4 terms. So you'll notice all 4 of those examples down at the bottom have 4 terms. So you're going to take those 4 terms and split them into 2 binomials. What is a binomial? Has 2 terms. Yep. An expression with 2 terms. So we're going to take our 4 terms and split them into groups of 2. Then you're going to factor out the greatest common factor of each binomial. Okay, now we're going to have to write really tiny, and I apologize for that. Write the common binomial. I'll show you what I mean here in a second. As the first factor, and use what's left as the second binomial. And the last thing we're going to do is check your answer. So if you remember way back in Algebra 1, when you first started solving equations, your teacher probably made you take that answer that you got and plug it back in, right? Because he or she wanted you to check your answer to that equation. So checking your answer on factoring, it's really simple to do. You just multiply it all back out like you've been practicing, right? And then check to make sure that what you end with is what you started with. So that's how you would check your answer. So our first example, what's the first thing I look for? Greatest common factor, do I have one between all four of those terms? Nope, so no GCF. So I'm going to take my four terms and I'm going to split it into two binomials. And other teachers try to use parentheses to split. I don't like to do that because then it just gets to where it's a lot of parentheses. So I'm going to put brackets underneath. Okay, so now we're going to look at each binomial individually, and we're going to pretend that the other one doesn't exist for a second. So I'm first going to look at the 8x cubed plus 4x squared. Is there a GCF between those two terms? What is it? 4x squared. 4x squared is your GCF out of those two terms. So I'm still pretending like these last two don't exist. If I take out that 4x squared, I'm going to be left with 2x plus 1. Now I'm going to repeat that whole process. I'm going to ignore the first two. I'm going to look at these two terms. What's my GCF between these two terms? 5. Now I'm going to take that 5. It's a positive 5, so I'm going to put plus 5. When I divide that out, 10x divided by 5 is 2x. 5 divided by 5 is 1. Now what do you notice? Yep, in the parentheses, it's the exact same. That should happen. Okay, you want that to happen because now that's going to be your first factor in your factored answer. So you're going to have 2x plus 1. Technically now that's your greatest common factor between your two terms. You want to get real technical about it. And then if you pretend those aren't there, your GCFs are what you have left, right? So that 4x squared plus 5, that's what goes in your second set of parentheses. 4x squared plus 5. And that is what your factored answer should look like. Okay, so if this were on a test or a quiz, like a quiz that you're going to have the next time I see you, I don't even know what day it is today. It's Monday. So Wednesday you have a quiz, just heads up, Wednesday you have a quiz. So if this were that quiz, then I would take this personally and I would multiply it out to make sure. So I'm going to check on this first one, and then I'm not going to take the time to check all of them because we have quite a bit to do today. So if I were going to check my answer, which I highly recommend you do on tests and quizzes, even on your homework, it's good practice, because I'm going to multiply this back out. So 2x times 4x squared is going to be 8x cubed. 2x times 5, 10x. 1 times 4x squared is 4x squared. And 1 times 5 is 5. Now, are these the exact same right now? They're the same, they're just not in the same order, right? So I could rearrange these terms to get 8x cubed plus 4x squared plus 10x plus 5, which is what I started off with. So I have checked my answer, I did it correctly. Good job, me. Right? Okay, let's do one more together, and then I'll let you do those 3 and 4 without me. Do I have a greatest common factor between all 4 of these terms? They're big numbers this time. There's not one. Just wanted to make you think a little early this morning. So there's no GCF. So just like last time, I'm going to group them 2 and 2. So looking at my first two terms, what's my GCF between those? 11x squared. Somebody whispered it. And when I divide that out, I have 10x plus 7. What about my GCF in the second group? 6. Okay, I'm going to take out a negative 6 because they're both negative. I'll explain that in a second. So when I take out a negative 6, negative 60x divided by negative 6 is positive 10x. Negative 42 divided by negative 6 is positive 7. The reason I knew to take out a negative is because I knew that these two sets of parentheses need to be the same, right? So if those need to be the same, then I'm going to need this one on the inside to be positive as well, which is why I knew to take out the negative. If you don't catch it the first time and then you have two negatives in here when you need two positives or whatever, then you'll know, hey, I got to get that sign. So now my answer is 10x plus 7, because those are the same, times, if those are gone, what I have left is 11x squared minus 6. Again, if this were a quiz or a test, I'd probably go back and check my answer, but for today, for the sake of time, I'm not going to do that. Okay, so I'm going to give you like 5 minutes to work those next two. Okay, that's what you should have gotten whenever you factored them. How are you feeling so far? Pretty good? Fantastic. Okay, we're going to go to page 12. You're going to have to write in on this one. Okay, once you get these copied down, go ahead and work them. Okay, there's the first one you can check. You know, it was a little weird because it had some extra variables. Did you guys catch the greatest common factor on the second one? Nice. Okay, the GCF between all 4 of your terms was what? 3x. So your GCF is 3x. So there's an extra step on that number 2. Take the 3x out first, out of all 4 terms. Once you've done that, then you factor by grouping as normal. Okay, so I like to pretend my original GCF isn't there. Then I'll factor it by grouping as normal. You get your 2x minus 5 in each set of parentheses. So you have 2x minus 5 and 3x plus 2. But that GCF of 3x is still there. So then I'll go back and put it in front at the very end. Ignoring it until the end is great. You just can't forget about it at the end. Okay? So there's 2 more. Make sure you look for a GCF first. Okay, I know I'm probably rushing you, but I'm only going to give you a couple more minutes. There are the answers for you to check. Just to ease some of your worries, they're not all going to be as complicated as number 4. Okay, no need to panic. They're not all going to be that crazy. Most of them will be much more similar to question 3 than question 4. Okay, that next half sheet in your sleeve that says factoring polynomials when ... that's going to go on page 13. There's some really big raindrops hitting the window. Sorry. Okay, factoring polynomials when the degree is 2 AKA it's a quadratic, or it has an x squared. Although it could be something other than x, so just so you know, they won't all be x. Okay, factoring by grouping was when there were 4 terms. This one is going to be for when there are 3 terms. When it's 3 terms, it's called a trinomial. And then this method I'm teaching you only works when the coefficient, or the number in front of the squared term, is 1. Okay, so right here in front of this x squared, there's an invisible 1. You know it's there. You just might not always remember it. Green is hard to see, sorry. Okay, so you may have in Algebra 1 done these X puzzles. So on these X puzzles, you're looking for 2 numbers that multiply to give you C, or multiply to give you that last term, but add to give you B. So our steps for factoring. The first thing, you're going to draw the parentheses and write in the variable, whatever it may be. Then you're going to draw and complete this X puzzle. I don't know what else to call it, but an X puzzle. You have to figure out what your signs are going to be. And you're going to use all of those things to fill in your factors. So use your X puzzle and signs. To fill in your factors. And your last step is going to be check your answer. So for this example, my variable is x. So I'm going to draw my 2 sets of parentheses, write in the x, and I'm going to make the X puzzle like we have up there at the top. So what I'm looking for are 2 numbers that multiply to give me 3. But add to give me 4. What are 2 numbers that multiply to give you 3 but add to give you 4? 1 and 3. Okay, they both need to be positive, because positive 1 times positive 3 is 3, and positive 1 plus positive 3 is 4. So I'm going to fill those in. So x squared plus 4x plus 3 factors into x plus 1 times x plus 3. You remember that from way back in the day? Never done this before. Did you guys do the X puzzles?
Yeah.
Most of you, yes. Not all of you. I love them. I could sit and do those X puzzles all day long. I'm also a math nerd, so there's that. You didn't have to agree with me so much, Hannah. Not to call you out. Oh. Okay, there should be one teeny tiny little piece of paper in that sleeve that looks like this. And that will help you figure out your signs. Okay, so on this first one, we have x squared minus 5x plus 6. So my answer is going to be 2 sets of parentheses, x in the beginning. So I'm going to draw my x puzzle. And I need 2 numbers that multiply to give me 6, but add to give me negative 5. So, yeah. So if you're like, there's a negative, what the heck? You can look right up here. If there's a negative first and then a positive, that means you're going to have 2 negative factors, right? So the 2 numbers that multiply to give you positive 6 but add to give you negative 5 were, as someone told me, negative 2 and negative 3. So this is going to factor x minus 2, x minus 3. Can I switch that 2 and 3? Yeah, if you have x minus 3 times x minus 2, that's the same answer. And it's totally fine. Okay, on the next one, my variable is still x. Again, my signs are both going to be negative based on those signs rules page I have up there. So what are 2 numbers that multiply to give me positive 1 but add to give me negative 2? Negative 1 and negative 1. So it factors x minus 1 times x minus 1. If you want to circle that and keep that as your answer, that's okay. The more mathematically correct way to write it is x minus 1 squared. I'm not super particular on you writing it in one specific way. I would prefer you to write it this way, but I'm not going to count it wrong because it's not wrong if you leave it like this. Okay? There's 3 and 4. What do you notice about number 4? There's a number in front of the x squared. Oh, can you do something with that number on this problem?
Yeah.
What is it?
GCF.
It's your GCF, your greatest common factor. So take out the GCF first, then factor it as normal. Okay, so I need factors of negative 12 that add to give me positive 1. So I'm going to use 3 and 4, but which one's going to be negative? Why is the 3 going to be negative? Because negative 3 plus 4 is positive 1, and I need positive 1. So this one's going to factor x minus 3, x plus 4. If you put minus 4 plus 3, when you multiply this out and check your answer on a test or a quiz, then you would have a negative x instead of a positive x in the middle, and that would be your sign of like, oh, hey, that's where I missed it. Okay, some of you are struggling on number 4, but you have to take out your GCF of 2 first. So you have 2 times x squared plus 7x plus 6. So for now, you need to ignore that 2. What are factors of 6 that add to give you 7? 6 and 1. So this is going to be x plus 6 times x plus 1 with that GCF of 2 in the front. Okay, there's your next 2. I'll get it. Okay. Anything you think this morning? Try to find factors of 72. Remember it was them? Okay. Okay, this is a little tip. You know that you'll have or I should say, on the test, you won't get a calculator, but you'll have that multiplication table. So if you get a number like 72 and you don't remember what multiplies to give you 72, you flip back to that multiplication table. I want to say it's on page 5 in your notebook. Then you can just look and find a 72 on there somewhere and figure out what multiplies to give you that 72. So what'd you guys come up with? -9 and +8, what? No, but I will give you a multiplication table. Like that page that we glued in, I'll give you a copy of that. So -9 and +8. Those factors x minus 9, x plus 8. Something weird happened on number 6. Are there factors of 7 that add to give you 9? Nope, that's not possible. So this one I threw in there just to remind you that not every expression is going to be able to factor. So I'm going to put it does not factor. Okay, and then 2 more for this page. Bless you. See, she took her mask down to sneeze. Sneezed into your arm. I feel like that's better than sneezing into your mask. Yes. The good news is there's not a ton of things to talk about in CAP today. Just a few. And if you got through all the stuff last week, then it's even less, and then you'll have time to work on your homework. I got like 4 evil eyes there. Okay, what two numbers multiply to give you 48 and add to give you 14? 8 and 6. Get x plus 8 times x plus 6. Or if you have 8 and 6 flipped, that's okay. X plus 6 times x plus 8 is the same thing. What about factors of 121 that add to give you negative 22? Negative 11 and negative 11. So it's going to factor x minus 11 twice. So x minus 11 squared. Okay, those are my favorite factoring problems. I could do those all day long. They're just pretty simple, pretty easy. Okay. There are harder ones because when you add a coefficient in front of that x squared, changes things. So page 15, there's nothing to glue in. We're going to write it all. I'm going to give you a second to write all that down. I know, I'm sorry. Okay, so when the number in front of that x squared is not 1, you cannot just do the x puzzle and plug it in like you have been, because it will not give you the correct answer. It's very sad. I wish it would, but it does not. Okay? So, personally, I think the easiest way to solve these types of factoring problems is to use this guess and check method, which is exactly what it sounds like. You're going to guess at what the factors might be, and then you're going to check it. And you're going to see if that's correct or if it's not correct. Okay? Sounds complicated, but if you're really pretty good with your multiplication facts and your number sense, adding and subtracting, it's not too bad. Okay? If that's not your strong point, I will show you another way to factor. Okay, after this, so don't get so stressed out by guess and check that you just shut down on factoring. Okay, so I will show you another way, probably even 2 other ways, but just want you to try it this way first because I really think it's the best and most efficient way to factor. Okay, so looking back at page 14 for a second, pull that back out. If I'm looking at number 7, how would I check this answer? I'd multiply it back out, right? So I'd multiply these 2 terms, x times x, and that would give me this first term, right? X squared. And then x times 6 would be 6x. 8 times x would be 8x. And 8 times 6 is 48. And then when I add these 2 terms together, that's what gives me that 14x, right? So whenever you're factoring, your goal is to get where if you simplified this factored expression, you'd end up back where you started, right? So that's what we're going to keep in mind as we do guess and check on this question right here. So in my 2 sets of parentheses, I need whatever's in the front of each set of parentheses to multiply to give me 4x squared, right? So what are my factors of 4? 2 and 2, what else? 4 and 1. Okay, so I'm going to start with 2x and 2x because that's what everyone said first. And then I need these last two terms in the parentheses to multiply to give me what? 3, right? Because right here, the 8 times the 6, that gave me this last term of 48, right? Same thing here. My last two things that I multiply need to multiply to give me 3. So what are my factors of 3? 3 and 1 or 1 and 3. Okay, starting off with this one because both of these signs are plus, which means both of these signs are going to be plus. So this is just my guess. I literally just guessed from the factors of my terms. I just guessed to see. So now I'm going to check it. 2x times 2x is 4x squared, which I know. Then I'm going to have 2x times 3, which is 6x. And 1 times 2x is 2x. 1 times 3 is 3, which I already know because that's where I pulled these from. So really, the only term you need to check is this middle one. Is 6x plus 2x 7x? No, it's 8x. So that means this is not the right factor. So we're going to try again. Okay, we're going to guess again. But we're going to guess smart, right? 1 and 3 are my only options to get 3. I tried 2 and 2, and that did not work. So now I'm going to try 4 and 1. So I'm going to have 4x and 1x. And then I'm going to leave the 1 and 3. And then again, I know they're both going to be plus. So here's my next guess. 4x times x is 4x squared, as it should be. 4x times 3 is 12x. 1 times x is 1x. Is that going to add to give me 7x? No, that's 13x. So again, that's not right. But am I closer this time? Okay. Can I change anything about this one? I can flip the 1 and the 3. So let's try that. So let's do 4x plus 3 and x plus 1. Four x times x is 4x squared. 4x times 1 is 4x. 3 times x is 3x. 3 times 1 is 3. Did that give me a middle term of 7x? No. So that one is my right answer. Okay, the more you do these, the better you get at recognizing which factors are going to be the correct ones, okay? We'll do some more together, don't panic. Okay, so the way that I'm going to start this next one, so I'm going to first write out all the factors. So what are my factors of 20? 1 and 20, 2 and 10, 4 and 5. Do I have any other ones? No. What are my factors of 14?
1, 14, 2 and 7.
2 and 7. Do I have any others? I just found a mistake on mine. Okay, so here's just a little tip. most of the time, I don't know if most of the time is the correct phrase to use here. A lot of the time, it's going to be these factors that are closer to each other. So a lot of the time, I always make this list, and I always go down the left-hand side, like 1 and whatever, 2 and whatever, 3 doesn't work, so 4. Like, I always make this list. And then I always start with these factors at the bottom, because a lot of the time, for some reason or another, those are the ones that work. That's not always how it is, but that's just the method that I use, and a lot of times it's less guessing and checking than if you start at the top with these bigger numbers, okay? So I'm going to start down here, and again, I'm just going to guess and check. So I'm going to do 4x and 5x. And I'm going to do 2 and 7. But this time, my signs are one positive and one negative. So if this last sign is negative, that means one of these in here is going to be negative. And I'm going to wait. So I'm just going to wait and see what happens before I decide what signs I'm going to do, okay? So if I have 4x times 5x, there's my 20x squared, like it should be. 2 and 7, that's 14, like it should be. Okay? So I'm looking to get a positive 27 here in the middle. So if I have 4 times 7, what is that? 28. And 2 and 5, that's going to be 10, right? There's no way to subtract those numbers to get a positive 27, right? So I already know that that is not going to be my right answer. So what I'm going to do instead of moving to the next one is I'm going to take my 2 and 7 and I'm going to switch those to see if that helps me. So I'm going to do 4x and 7 and a 5x and 2. I'm going to see if that gets me any closer. So I need two numbers that subtract to give me 27, right? So 4x times 2 is 8x. 7 times 5x is 35x. Right? Can I subtract those numbers and get a positive 27? Yeah. Isn't 35 minus 8 positive 27? So I need a positive 35 and a negative 8x, right? Well, to make this a negative 8x, doesn't the 2 have to be negative? And the 35, that would make this 7 need to be positive. So minus 8x plus 35x does give me that 27 I'm looking for. Okay, I'm going to do one more with you. What are my factors of 6? 6 and 1, and 3 and 2. What are my factors of 14? 1 and 14, and 2 and 7. Yep. Okay, so again, I'm going to use these down here at the bottom. Again, my signs are opposite here, and so I'm not really sure where they're going to go, so I'm going to wait and do the signs last. So I'm going to use 2x and 2, and 3x and 7. And I'm looking for a positive 17. So 2x times 7 is a 14x. 2 times 3x is 6x. If I subtract those, I'm either going to get a positive 8 or a negative 8, right? There's no way to get 17? Okay, So that one's not gonna be the right one. So I'm gonna switch my 2 and 7. Well, 2x times 2 is 4x. 7 times 3x is 21x. If I subtract those, can I get a positive 17? Isn't 21 minus 4 17? So I need a positive 21 and a negative 4. So 2x times 2, I need that to be a negative 4. 7 times 3, I need that to be positive 21. And there's my answer. Okay, so on this worksheet I'm handing out, there's going to be some that you need to do this on, but if you get stuck, skip it and go to the next one, just can. We will review all of these things before we take our test, or our quiz, not test, I'm sorry, don't panic. Before we take our quiz on Wednesday. Okay, but these are all mixed. So there's going to be some that are just factored by GPS. There's going to be some that are factored by grouping. There's going to be some where you can just do the X puzzle. And then there's going to be some where you need to guess and check. Okay? Again, if it's a guess and check one and you're like, what the heck are you doing, Miss Stewart? That's fine. Just take a break, skip that one, go to the next one, and then we'll talk about them Wednesday. Okay?
Are we doing both sides?
Yes, both sides. What do you always look for first?
Greatest common factor.
Greatest common factor.